Rand, Dawn's going to be joining us for this, correct?
Yeah, she's looking up the number. I just sent her. I'm going to forward her the email.
I just wasn't sure since you had the official logo behind you if you were.
No, I'm not the official representative. I'm the vice official representative. I just sent her the invite again. There she is. It's coming in now. There you are. Hello, Dawn.
Hi, how are you?
I like your background, Dawn.
I know I'm trying to be like, I listened to, yeah, let me actually look at that.
I know, you look corporate CEO right there.
Isn't that beautiful? I was listening to Cuomo this morning and just a little while ago, and he actually, just what he was saying about being a New Yorker, and he's from Queens, I'm from Queens, and just, how he could hear the different accents and he knows who's from Brooklyn and who's from the Bronx and who's from Queens. It just like, I had to have this background. I love New York.
I love it.
So should we wait? How do you want to do it? You want to open it, Ivy?
Sure. You want to go ahead and get started?
Should we?
So we're a couple minutes past.
Okay.
So thank you everybody for getting onto this Zoom conference. It's Friday, March 27th, and this is the second of two of these meetings that we are hosting. We held one yesterday for the local merchants, and today's call is for the business professionals in our community. And the reason that we sort of came up with this format and working with Dawn Zanker-Rosen and her board at the Chappaqua Millwood Chamber of Commerce. And this project is really being led by Lauren Levin on behalf of the Newcastle Town Board. And the reason that sort of Dawn and Lauren came up with this format and this idea was really to start to get people together and to engage in a conversation about how we can all work together to help our local businesses, whether they're merchants or business professionals, to survive during this time of crisis, and to think together about whether there are sort of creative ways that we can use to drive business during this time, and also to sort of open up lines of communication between all of you and the town of Newcastle so that we can be sort of listening to what concerns you have, what feedback you have for us, and really gathering any questions that you might have so that we can be responsive to your needs. A lot of what the town is focused on right now is really the sort of day in, day out crisis management of this emergency. We are, of course, very focused on things like, how do we make sure that we get enough N95 masks to our first responders? And so while we can at times be sort of weighed down by those administrative responsibilities during the emergency, we wanted to have these sessions because we also wanted to convey at the same time that it's not lost on any of us, the economic impact that this crisis is having. And it's important to us that you hear from us and understand that we want to be your partners in figuring out how do we survive and recover from this when we get to the point where we're at recovery. So that's really kind of the intention and the purpose of what we're doing here. All of that said, I ask for your patience with us. We know, and we want to be fully transparent, that we don't have all of the answers. The guidance is changing day to day, even hour to hour. We had this meeting yesterday morning at 8 a.m. and we've learned, and things have changed even since then. So, we're trying to roll with it. We're trying to put out the information that we have and make sure that we get it into the hands of the people who need it as quickly as we can. And at the same time, things are constant. The ground is constantly shifting under our feet. So with that said, we know things will continue to shift. And one of the recommendations that we took away from the call yesterday was, now that we've started these, to figure out what might be a regular cadence for these meetings to occur, so that we continue to have these conversations about how we can all help one another within this community. A couple of things I wanted to say just before we sort of get started. We're going to be going over sort of, and I'm going to turn it over to Lauren in just a second. We're going to sort of reconfigure the agenda just a little bit, because as Dawn kind of rightly pointed out yesterday, one of the critical things that she's learned in the conversations she's been having with the Business Council of Westchester, other chambers of commerce, is that a lot of what people want to know right now is just about, sort of the financial and the legal aspects, and how do I just keep my business operating at this moment. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we know right now in terms of opportunities and options that are available to people. Lauren will go over things including, we have guidance from New York State now with regard to their pause executive order as to what qualifies as an essential and a non-essential business. That information, I'm sure you've all seen it at this point, but if you haven't, the coronavirus.health.ny website is an incredibly valuable resource. There's lots of great information on there, and they are constantly updating as they sort of get additional clarity about what does and does not qualify as an essential business. There is also the ability through that website to download the application form that would allow you to qualify yourself as an essential business, if that's something that you need or want to do. In terms of loans, there is Emergency Bridge Capital. Lauren will talk about this. That's available for up to $10,000 through the Community Capital New York project. And there's also, of course, EPA disaster relief funding for up to $2 million with a low interest loan, and that's through the federal government. There's a lot of sort of webinars and Zoom conferences and Facebook Live. There's a lot of these sort of opportunities to tune in and learn more about these things. One of them is coming up on Tuesday, March 31st at 11, and we'll push out this information after this meeting so that everybody has it, specific to the EPA disaster relief funding. Of course, the stimulus package, we're all sort of trying to unpack that when we had the meeting tomorrow morning. It was so soon that we hadn't even really started to get some clarity around what was and was not included in the stimulus package. Unemployment insurance, we had a question that came up yesterday on the call around whether to retain employees or to lay them off, and understanding that they were going to need to go on to unemployment insurance. Unemployment insurance in New York State, last week we learned from the governor that he was doing away with the mandatory 7-day waiting period in order to qualify for unemployment insurance. And of course, the stimulus package has now allowed for an additional $600 payment on top of the unemployment insurance benefit that folks were already getting. And of course, the other aspects of the stimulus package, again, we're still sort of learning what all of this means and what it will mean for local government and what it will mean for local businesses. But of course, the payments to individuals and families will hopefully free up some capital for folks to be able to work with as well. The additional $1,200 payment that's going to be made to individuals, or $2,400 to couples, with a sliding scale there. So I think the only other thing I wanted to mention at the top of the call, and I'm sure Dawn will go over this as well, because I understand it's a recommendation that came out of the conversation that various chambers of commerce have been having with the Westchester County, is that On Tuesday, March 31st, it's apparently a big day for Zoom web conferences, at 2 p.m., there's going to be a county conference on an e-commerce webinar that's going to be held at that time. And again, we'll push all this out at the end of the call. So those are just a couple of things I wanted to make sure we covered at the top of the call. And, you know, I want to make sure that I give everybody enough time to sort of weigh in. I'll be on the call the whole time. We're really looking to gather feedback from folks so that we as a town board understand how we can best support our business community through this crisis. And before sort of turning it over to Lauren, I also just wanted to recognize we also have Councilwoman Lisa Katz on the line. And I'm pointing to you where you are on my screen, and Councilman Jason Lichtenthal's on as well. So with that said, Lauren, do you want to walk folks through some of the research that you've been doing and your thinking around sort of what we know at this time?
Sure. Thanks, Ivy. Okay, so yesterday, Community Capital, which is a non-for-profit organization in New York, presented their emergency bridge loan. And it is the express loan that will provide liquidity to small businesses up to $10,000. What's really interesting about this is that they can turn around the application process in 3 days. I have the link to the actual application and what qualifications they're looking for. For example, you know, they require a credit score of 650. There are other qualifications there, but what's really nice about this option is that they can turn around money really quickly. Whereas the Small Business Administration right now, Kim, the president of Community Capital, mentioned that the Small Business Administration is taking about a month to about 40 days to go through the reviewing process and to approve any loans. But she did say that this is just a bridge loan to help, you know, short-term small businesses get the liquidity, but she truly recommends that all businesses apply through the Small Business Administration first, because that takes a long time to get through. And the other good news with that is I've heard a lot of feedback with the Small Business Administration forms and documents are very confusing and difficult to navigate through. We have a couple of credit lawyers in Newcastle who are willing to provide pro bono work to small businesses and help business owners get through these forms. And you know, if you are interested in obtaining their contact information, you can email me, and I can put you in contact with them. Furthermore, with the Community Capital loans, the application is only 2 pages. So I really think that once you go through Community Capital as well as Small Business Administration, you have great options here. It's just a matter of getting the paperwork done. And truly, it's, you know, we have great resources in town who can help you get through that paperwork. And today there will be another webinar with the Small Business Administration. I'm actually going to join that at 2 o'clock. And so they're going to go more in depth of what other loan options will be available, considering now that the federal government is, you know, approving this economic stimulus plan. So it's a lot of information, and I will tell you right now that it's quite fluid and it's changing. I mean, I remember reading the Small Business Administration a week ago, and basically, you know, they had very stringent qualifications, such as providing collateral to guarantee the loan. But now the federal government is stepping in and saying, you know what, if you can prove X, Y, and Z, you don't have to put your house up as a guarantee. So it's really good news, but I think it's challenging to keep up with information. But at the same time, they're being super communicative, and they're very, very helpful in the way of being responsive to these things. And especially Community Capital, I think that it's a really, really great resource to look out to. Does anyone have any questions about it?
Well, Lauren, the Community Capital, is it a state group or is it a federal group?
It's a state group. It's a New York State group, non-for-profit. They raise money through other businesses. In fact, if you're on the other side of it, if you want to help small businesses, they also have a donation button. So they raise money through their organization.
I just shared the link to communitycapitalny.org in the chat function. So if anybody
Thanks,
has their
Heidi.
chat function open.
They also provide loans other than the 10,000. They have a normal program that goes up to, I think, 250.
That is correct. And to Michael's point too, they don't have as stringent qualifications for their other types of loans. This particular $10,000 loan, there are certain bullet points that you have to follow the criteria, which is kind of challenging. But at the same time, I think that if there is a business out there that needs the liquidity now and can fulfill all those terms, they should definitely look at this option. Dawn, do you want to take over with the next
Sure.
item?
Yes. I was thinking, I just want to share kind of my perspectives. I was actually thinking, I always like to look for the silver lining in things. And I was thinking if we were going to have a pandemic and we would all be stuck at home, that this is really a great time for it. Because everything I for my own work, I really haven't had to halt anything too much. Everything could be taken online. These meetings, these Zoom meetings are awesome. I mean, I feel like I'm connecting more now than I was before the whole thing. Events, there could be virtual events, social media, you know, there are so many avenues and ways to keep your business going online, you know, virtually. So I was on Kristen, I don't know if you're, Kristen, are you there? She had this great meeting yesterday with other chamber presidents, and there were just some really interesting ideas that came out of it. One that stuck out in my mind that had to do with social media, and it made me think that that's great for merchants, but it kind of exemplified the power of social media and what could be done with it. Maybe Kristen could chime in here, but this one guy was talking about how in his town, they're doing the takeout challenge, which we should do here. And it actually sounded really fun. They do the takeout challenge and you pledge how many times a week you're gonna take out food. And then you post it on Facebook and post like funny pictures of yourself, like, you know, taking out. And he said they've had some really funny pictures, you know, of kids hanging upside down, of, you know, just really funny things, and people post themselves. And so Facebook contests, social media, not just Facebook, Twitter, there are just Instagram. There are so many ways to bring people into your office without having an office. And I would be interested, I was even thinking, I know there are two realtors on this call, and I was wondering what you do if you're showing houses virtually, how that's working. Because I feel like, you know, everything, it makes me think, you know, it's made me think twice about why I even pay rent on an office space, because I feel like I have my whole life in my laptop now. So it would be nice to hear from other people, like what you're thinking, like how Ted and Natalia, how you're doing, you're showing houses. Are you still showing houses? Are you doing that virtually? You know, what's going on there? Ted or Natalia, you want to take that? Oh,
Yeah.
Natalia? Yeah.
It's me. Hi. So I'm with Compass, and we are not allowed to show. I'm licensed with Compass in New York, which is Westchester for me, and I'm licensed with Compass in Connecticut. So Connecticut is essential business. Real estate is essential business, and those guys are allowed to show legally. But of course, based on the common sense and precautions, what's happening right now. In Westchester, we are doing all kinds of things. We're doing virtual tours, 3D, all kinds of things. We're trying to do it, but legally we can't show. I do have a bunch of appraisals going on, and home inspections I don't have at the moment. The home inspections happening when it's just the offer is accepted. So I have about 9 contracts. Inshallah, we will close them. Everybody wants to close. Nobody wants to get out. Yeah, appraisals are working. Banks are essential business, and we are just accommodating our clients. But again, according to Cuomo's regulations, we can't show like as before. That's my answer.
All right, so that's real estate. Does anybody else have any, I mean, I could continue chiming in on mine. I mean, I'm in PR, I'm a service business. And in terms of how I'm staying afloat and keeping, really trying not to have any, just keeping like a smooth transition and not to have any change in pace, is just by kind of changing my mindset and saying to myself, this everything I do now has to go online. Everything, every conversation, everything is online. There is nothing, there's nothing one-to-one anymore. And it's just that change in mindset is seems to be helping. The other thing that helps is I've noticed that people have, even though we have so much time, there seems to be less time. So when I'm interfacing with media and I'm pitching media, even my correspondences, I'm limiting to like 2 sentences. So I think that people are, especially people who are new to Zoom, new to social media, and not even new to it, but new to using it as your primary way of communicating and primary way of meeting, people are a little overwhelmed. So keeping, your communications and keeping your business short and to the point, I found is very helpful.
Dawn, if you want, I'll chime in. As you know, we changed our sales tactics because to sell solar systems, you need to go to somebody's house. Or at least that's what we thought beforehand. We now have changed our sales force to be a video sales force. So they make video appointments. They now have to prep more for that reason. We suggest they drive by the house, take a picture of the house, come back, set that as their virtual background. So it looks like they're standing outside the house and having the sales call with the people that are inside the house. But they have to be fully prepared. Their workstation has to be ready for that call. They have to have their proposal ready on the workstation so they can switch back and forth. But we started to do this, and our call center now is saying, instead of having someone come to your house, we'd like to set up a video conference call. People are stir crazy sitting around the house, and they're taking those calls a lot more than they used to when people had to come, knock on the door, come in, sit down, because I guess they feel they can shut off that call very quickly if they want to say goodbye versus trying to get them out of the house. So we now have a lot more appointments than we did before. We're making calls. We're continuing to try to sell systems in a time when I thought we would just have to stop selling, period. So it has changed the way we do business. We had to be very innovative to get there. I had to train the force how to use video conferencing to do it. And it might change the world, the way we work in the future. It might be a whole new way of doing business.
Okay.
I think so. I really do. I think it is going to change the way we do business. I mean, they talk about that. There was and I'll share this, I'll find it. There's a whole talk about how the consumer, I think I forwarded that to you, Rand. I have to find it. I'll put it on the chat. How consumer behavior, oh, what happened to me? Oh, oops. Sorry. That consumer behavior is forever changed. That people's focus is forever changed. And you know, I mentioned being online, but I feel like it, even though, you know, our communications is maybe shortened in terms of emails or whatever, and what I had said to be more concise and to the point. I think also that there's more time for webinars and tutorials than ever before, because there, it seems to me also, and I was just on a blogger call yesterday evening, it seems that the work day, and I don't know if this will change as time goes on, but the work day has stretched. So there's more time, and you're home and you're thinking, you know, now's the time to kind of ramp up my skills in, you know, in whatever. And I think this is also an opportunity for businesses to offer webinars. And that would be and, you know, in terms of looking for new clients, putting something together and having a webinar, a meeting like this, you know, just even yesterday, Kristen was able to bring together all those chamber presidents. Would she have been able to do that if it were a normal day? I'm not so sure she would have had 15 people, because everybody's busy. Everybody was running to meetings before this, running and doing errands. Who had time to just go to yet another meeting? But I could sit here and Lauren mentioned after this meeting, she's going on another Zoom meeting and she could probably do another 4 after that. You know, we all can, you know, because we're here. So this is an opportunity. I see Game Changer is on here. I don't know what, you know.
I wanted to, I don't want to interrupt you, but I do want to tell you guys, just, we've been doing this for a while. We've had a lot of online tutoring for years, mostly through with our older kids in the college, just to give you guys some background, for college prep, for our college, for like our essay specialists and stuff like that. And now we're getting more involved with the younger kids as well, but we're constantly on these Zoom conferences. I think it gives you a lot of freedom. It does, I agree, extend the workday a lot. We're sort of 24/7 to begin with. I don't know if everyone knows, but we are a free referral service for tutors and coaches throughout Westchester. And we're based in Chappaqua. We're Chappaqua families, and our kids go to overall go to Chappaqua schools or went to Chappaqua schools. But just so you guys know, you know, the online thing, which we think is going to become much more prevalent going forward as well, I think can be just as interactive with any member of the community as in person.
Yeah, I think you're right. And does anybody else have an example of what they might be? You know, I keep going back to real estate, so I'll go to something else. Jason, what do you do?
So I am also on Zoom meetings all the time. So, you know, I've moved from a lead technology position to more of a business focused position. And so I'm constantly, it's one of the things that I do when I'm in the office is a heck of a lot of water cooler talk and talking to various people and trying to convince them of projects that are of importance and so forth. And now a lot of that water cooler talk has come online. We've got a lot more people with, you know, lacking in shaving and things like that in those meetings. But outside of that, you know, businesses has continued to move forward. I don't think there's any panacea. I think you know, so some examples, right? My parents have now learned how to use Instacart and other ways so that they can go and get the things that they need. And so over time, things are going to change. People are going to be more comfortable with things like Zoom or WebEx and these other tools as mechanisms for communication, as well as for mechanisms for shopping and things of the like.
I agree. I think, you know, you're kind of, you know, what do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention. We don't have a choice. So I am actually, I you know, was not I did very little with Zoom. Now I feel like that's all I do. You know, it gives me a reason to get dressed in the morning and go on these calls, and you know, it's great. You know, I think that probably what's the most important thing as a service business or any sort of business is to try to gain as much knowledge of what's out there and take advantage of it. And, you know, and just to I think the bottom line is to just realize that it's not business as usual anymore, and that you kind of have to go with the flow and learn as much as you can. There are a lot of, I talked about webinars. There are plenty of webinars. There's Coursera. There are plenty of ways to ramp up your skills and figure out, you know, how to really, you know, leverage all that's going on online. The chamber, we're trying to find a really good speaker to within the next week to talk to share, you know, what are all that you can get out of Zoom and other platforms. So I think that, you know, to me, if that really is probably, there's no panacea, as Jason said, but to me, the only road that you can take right now is a different road, you know, and a road to learning what you can do to take your business and make the most of everything that's offered online. Take what you do and make it a virtual way of doing business. That's what I think.
So John, can I suggest, because I know we've got a lot of people on the call and I want to give folks an opportunity to be
Yes.
heard. I was wondering if we could sort of turn it over to the folks who are on the call to give us any feedback or comments or thoughts that you have. I know me and Lisa, Lauren, and Jason were very interested in understanding if you have thoughts or ideas about the way that the town could be helpful to you, either from a local government perspective or as advocates on your behalf with regard to reaching out to our state, county, or federal elected representatives. So I think we're interested in hearing that feedback. And I think, you know, John, not to speak for you and your board, but I know you guys are interested in hearing feedback as well as to how the chamber can be.
Yes, yes. And actually, when we had talked about putting this call together, I said that I would love it to be a brainstorming session. I would, you know, I feel like I imparted like my thoughts. I would love to hear everybody else's and hear how you're navigating and you know, managing your business, you know, as of last week when life changed, or 2 weeks ago. So I would love to hear that if people would chime in.
Well, I can start right there. I'm an attorney, and we've gone to Zoom meetings with clients because obviously we don't want to do in-person meetings except when it's absolutely necessary. And due to some regulatory changes, we can actually notarize documents now via Zoom if that's what's required. And Lisa Katz, this might be of particular interest to you. We are getting a lot more calls about estate planning and long-term planning. So for those who do that, which I don't, perhaps some referrals, some people who might be available to take those kind of calls would be helpful. And we do have one thing that I think the town might be able to bring some pressure on. We're certainly doing it through bar associations. There are some problems because our courts are shut down substantially. So in my case, which is a family law and divorce practice, women in particular, but non-moneyed spouses who have been cut off by the more moneyed spouse no longer can get hearings. So we can no longer get orders that require the moneyed spouse to give them temporary alimony or temporary child support because the courts simply aren't available to us. And there's at least 2 cases here in town that are cases of mine where I have women in both cases who desperately need support, but the courts aren't open. So the courts have not yet adopted this Zoom technology or whether it's FaceTime or Skype. And we really need to get something going for these folks. And I'm not sure to what extent the town can bring this upstairs, but this isn't something, it's far enough down the food chain that it hasn't gotten the attention that it needs to. Similarly with domestic violence, there's a little bit more pressure there. Hope's Door is doing amazing work in trying to take care of domestic violence victims, but they are sometimes trapped in homes because of the stay-at-home orders, and they're trapped with their abusers. So anything that can be done to sort of elevate the concern that we need to figure out some technological way, if we can't do in-person hearings, would be greatly appreciated, I would think, particularly in the family law practice community.
Kristen, just to your point, that's actually all I do are wills and healthcare proxies. So yeah, I've been a little busy. But I'm also, just if anyone knows, I'm offering free healthcare proxies to any first responders who need them. So if you hear of anybody who does, definitely send them my way because they're so important now. I think that everyone is getting used to Zoom and it's important, but I also want to know, in my other hat as a town councilwoman, how we as the town can support businesses. And, we talked on a call yesterday about maybe having a town Zoom account that we can provide to people who don't have them. But if there's any other thing that the town can do, I know we're all kind of struggling with our own personal practices and businesses, but also if there's anything kind of globally that we can do to help everyone.
When it comes to towns, we deal with towns all the time. We submit building permits, we go in front of ARBs, zoning boards, planning boards when it comes to dealing with the homes and trying to build solar systems. And right now we're finding most of them don't know how to deal with us because a lot of them in Newcastle might not be the rule here, might be more the exception. Most of them require us to come in, file the building permit in person, deliver checks in person. Most of them do not allow us to use agent letters anymore, so we need to let the homeowner notarize and come in. It's become very ordinous for us to try to continue to operate this way. And we basically have had to shut down because we can't continue. Even though we have designs ready, we can't submit them to towns to get them approved for building permits so that we can build once this lifts. If there's any way that towns could start to look at other ways for us to apply for building permits, it would be really helpful.
Lisa, to Rand's point, right now, I'm applying myself for the Architectural Review Board, and I'm applying for a building permit. And so far, it really hasn't held anything up, Rand. I don't know if that makes a difference or you're doing something different, but they actually offered
might
a
be
Zoom.
Newcastle.
It is Newcastle. They offered a Zoom
Yeah,
meeting.
Ted, I'm sorry, Ted, but that's Newcastle. What I'm getting at is most of it's not the same. Most of the county, that is a problem.
Right.
Yeah, so the town of Newcastle, to Ted's point, the town of Newcastle we're having town board meetings, we're having planning board meetings, we're having ARB meetings. So we were actually one of the first towns to get up and going on Zoom. So we are conducting town business to the extent that we're able to during this. But I guess, Rand, certainly I can mention to others if you want to shoot me an email and let me know, I'm happy to reach out to any of kind of my colleagues.
And that's my point. That's my point. 90% of the towns, if not more, have basically shut down any public hearings, and they have not come up with a way to come about. So if you're on a public hearing with a public forum with other towns, that is a major problem.
I'm on multiple of those calls per day.
I
just got off one at noon. I'm on another one at 3:30. So,
and likewise, my hat's off to the town of Newcastle, to Ivy, to you, and the rest of the town board for what you've done, because you've kept the town open in these times.
Yeah. Speaking of that, as far as getting information, a lot of, well, realtors, and to Rand's point, and maybe this is a question, getting files. Some of the towns will send building files out by email, as opposed to having to go in physically to the computer to look the information up that you need. And I'm going to be running into that tomorrow or this week, needing some information from the building department. And I'm not sure if that's something that's been addressed, or would the town be able to send more information out and keep it online by email, et cetera?
I got replies from from our assessor. He's answering within 5-10 minutes. I got like property cards and stuff from him. He's great. I don't know about the building department.
I know, Ted, like that Christina has been sending out surveys and the status of open permits electronically to a lot of people.
Okay,
And
thanks.
Rand, to your point, if you do need notarizations, all notaries can now notarize via email, via video conference, as long as we see the person sign on a video conference and are assured through identification that that's the person. We can notarize a document via PDF. It's
Right.
May I add to this? It's maybe we should have a list of notaries and this attorneys and people who people need right now. I know lots of people, I'm sorry about this, but lots of people are making wills right now. And apparently you cannot sign a will by DocuSign. You have to sign it in person. Is it correct?
So that actually is correct. What I've been doing in my practice, it sounds sort of ridiculous, but people have been driving to my office. I've been handing them through a window Lysol documents so I can actually watch them sign and direct, because some of the documents, a will is a little easier, but powers of attorney, things like that are more difficult to show where you need to sign. And then I've had witnesses standing another 6 feet away, and we're kind of getting it done that way. And then they're handing it back through the window, and then I'm notarizing those kind of things that require witnesses, because a lot of wills require witnesses as well, which is actually the bigger problem.
I think to Natalia's point, perhaps we replicate the directory we did for the merchants and restaurants and do a business professionals directory. Particularly with the folks who have the ability. I mean, I don't know how to, I don't want to make it super complicated, because what's nice about the directory is, like, you know which places deliver, which offer curbside pickup, the phone number. I do think that it would be very meaningful information for folks, especially people who have the ability to notarize documents and the type of work that Kristen and Lisa do, I think is also really important to folks right now. So I'm happy to help pull that together with everybody. And actually it works for me personally too, because Jill Shapiro called me and asked me to get her contact information of all the business professionals so that we can send out all these, notes and applications from the Small Business Administration as well as the federal government as to, what type of loans are available. So let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone and get this done.
Yeah, we have a very big list. We were actually talking about that. We had a board meeting the other day, and Michael and Rand we all talked about it, and Natalia, and we were trying to make sense of the list because it's massive. I mean, we do have, and we're working on it now, we have a big list. We have, as you said, we have restaurants, we have stores, we do have business professionals. And what we were talking about doing is just categorizing it, keeping that list and categorizing it. If you think it needs to be broken up into 2 lists, that's a possibility too. I mean, that's what we're trying to make sense. I had hoped to get started on it, but even as of today, people send me more and more updates every day. So I figured I'd wait through today, and then I actually spoke with Linda Fears, and then we'd get started on kind of pulling it together over the weekend and Monday. because, but if you think, I guess, Lauren, I guess what I'm asking you is, we thought we would take that list and categorize it, or is it two separate lists in your opinion?
I can, is it an Excel document, Dawn?
No, because up until now, see what I've done is, what happens when, starting last week, I guess, when I feel like every day is flowing into the next, but last week and the week before, people were sending, like, I call them love letters. They were sending all these, thank you so much to the community. I support you. I want everybody to stay healthy. I love you, XXOO. And I felt like I didn't want to cut that out. I wanted.
Dawn, I think you're missing the point. We talked
sorry.
about that. We talked about this a little bit before. They're looking for an email list, and I think it's our
an
constant
email list.
our
Okay.
constant contact list would suffice.
I have that. Sorry, that was a long-winded way of answering the question.
Which I often.
I mean, I think phone numbers would be really helpful,
Okay.
Dawn, just because people, I think people want to call these business professionals and say, hey, I need some advice about X, Y, and Z. Or
Okay.
can I get,
Yes.
especially
Right.
with the phone, like you can, address things quickly. So I'm happy to mine through the data. I'm pretty quick on, pulling stuff together and categorizing.
Yeah, I could send you what I have. I could
Yeah.
easily send you what I have. Yeah,
Thank
and I
you.
could send you the emails that I have
Right.
the list I've been working off of.
Okay, fantastic.
Hey, can I just
Sorry
jump
for
in
the
with
long-winded explanation then.
Can I just jump in with a point backwards on the SBA stuff? The loans that we've been talking about now are all direct to the SBA and community service organization. But the bill that's being passed by the House, I think today or tomorrow.
It just passed.
What?
Yeah.
It just
It
passed.
just passed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that bill has some regular SBA loans, which will go through banks and tertiary lenders and non-bank lenders. And there will be some grants in that, but I don't think any of us really know what's in that bill yet, but we will by next week. And we'll push that out.
I've been doing Mike, I've been doing a lot of research on that. And the SBA loans are direct loans, they're disaster relief loans, and they are a grant. You see this? No, you can't because of the white background. They are grants that can be used for payroll. They can be used for mortgages. They can be used for different things like that. And they will be grants, so that you don't have to pay them back. The details are still being worked out to some degree, but you do need to apply directly to the SBA. And there's a form on the SBA site, which I probably get more detail later, Lauren, when you and I will be on that call. We'll get more information. We can pass it along to everybody. But it's called the Disaster Business Loan Application. It's not that onerous. It's 2 pages. It's non-recourse. In other words, there is no collateral that you need to do. You just need to show it against your payroll. And it's a payroll, I believe, of sometime in February that they use to judge the size of the grant of the loan. And as long as you adhere to the purpose of the loan, then it becomes a grant. And all you pay is interest while you hold it. So far, that's what I know. But it's been 3 days of deep discovery.
Right, we'll have more details during the next week, I'm sure. And some of the loans, I know the ones you're talking about are direct, but there's also going to be an expansion of the regular SBA loans through the banks. That's what I've been told by the banks I do business with.
True.
Before I'm looking at the clock, and I want to make sure I get this in before we end. And we talked about this on our merchant call. We have this really fabulous new website, the Chamber does, where you can promote your business on your own page. Maybe Rand, you want to speak?
Sure.
Yeah.
So any of you that are members of the Chamber, and you should all already have your sign on to the website. If you haven't, you don't know what it is, please go out to the website and just go to member There's a login part of the website for members. Go there, request your login. If you have any problems, you can email me or Dawn, probably me, maybe the one to do that. My email, I'll probably put on the chat, but it's rand@sunrisesolarllc.com, and I'll help you get through it. Once you get to your profile page, there's an area there called Deal and Hot Deal. You can put your own deals out there. You can put your own items that you want to promote during this time. It's a great way to put forward what you're trying to promote in these times of trouble. It will add to social media. So somebody then Googles your site, it will tell a lot more about you as well. Let's try to promote yourselves through the web. We'll help promote you as well through the chamber. So it's a great way for all of us to try to tie the community together, tie Newcastle, Millwood, as well as your business together in the area. But you first got to be able to log into the site. You got to update your profile. I know a bunch of you have. I don't think everybody has. Let's try to get there, and I'll help you get through it all.
If I could make a suggestion for chamber members, would you want to consider waiving fees to join the chamber during this time? You know, a lot of businesses are struggling and may want the information provided by the chamber. And, you know, in addition, it would be a great way to get people onto the chamber site who maybe didn't join before. And once they realize all the valuable resources, when it comes time to renew, then you could charge them, you know, the regular renewal rate.
Well, what we thought we would do, we did have this conversation. We pay for, you know, I mean, we're not a for-profit, you know, we pay for, let's say, Chamber Master and our program. So what we thought we would do is you know, since we don't want to, you know, we need, you know, people to, we need finance it, you know, we need member dues. We would cut that by 2/3, that we would make the $150 member dues, cut that down to $50, you know, so that at least, you know, that, and which would be a significant reduction, and hopefully that would make a difference.
Lisa, it does cost us money to run the chamber. We have no other funds coming in to help us offset that. So we did try to cut it down to a bare minimum of what it would cost to keep running it and keep supporting it.
Also, it's an issue of fairness for those people who already did pay their dues.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. But right, above it, right, beyond the fact that we do pay, that there are different costs associated with running the website, with running everything, and we need the dues to pay for it. I think what Michael just said is correct. You know, people have already paid, so you know, to go to you know, cut it from 150 to 50 to take us through this very difficult period is reasonable, actually, because we offer a lot. You know, we have, you know, the website, we'll promote the business through Facebook. We also have this newsletter that goes out. We have the directory. So there are, you know, a great number of benefits. And what we're going to do is use this period to have very informative webinars and helpful webinars that will kind of break down what's available, how to do business online, how to create, you know, your virtual business, because that's basically what we're all doing. We're recreating our businesses. We're kind of starting from scratch in a way. We're regrouping. So we want to help with that, and we're all in it, you know, together. So that's that. The other thing, this just want to mention too, that this conversation has kind of sparked a thought. I loved that Lisa and Kristen were able to discuss, you know, Kristen said that people are calling her about estate stuff. And then Lisa said, well, hey, I do that. And you're networking, right? So maybe we could have a networking party on Zoom, and people can share that kind of information and refer business back and forth. I would love to do that. People think that's a good idea. Any thoughts on that from anybody? Would that be helpful? Because I thought it was very interesting, and it was really nice the way, you know, Lisa and Kristen were connecting. No, yes,
I
maybe
say
no.
something? I just working is great, especially with a glass of wine, but it's
Yeah.
difficult to speak at the same time. So people need to.
Mm.
It's just Zoom doesn't give this, you know, possibility to people talk there, to people talk there. I don't know. I don't know how it will be technically possible. That's just my idea. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think anything is possible, so I'll look into it. You know, I feel like if we, you know, go through, if we're a group of, let's say we're 14, I think we were initially 17 participants. If we all introduce ourselves and what we do, then we can connect and just in the same way that Lisa and Kristen did. I love that.
We're coming up on 2 p.m. I know Lauren and I need to run off to another Zoom
Mhm.
meeting, and then I have another one at 2:30. So how about we try to wrap this one up unless there's something else urgent that we need to
That'd be
chat about?
great.
So I know that we all took a lot of notes. We actually, in this particular session, shared a lot of notes in our group chat too, which is fantastic. I think maybe as a next step, Lauren, Dawn, and I can sort of collaborate on kind of writing up some of the guidance that we shared on this call and circulating that around to everybody. And then, you know, Dawn, if you're looking to make this sort of a weekly event or a bi-weekly event, I don't know what the right cadence for the business professional group is. I leave that to your sort of expert discretion. But, you know, speaking on behalf of the town, I think I can speak for everybody on this call. You know, we're here, we're available, we want to be involved to the extent that you'd like to have us be involved. And, you know, everybody has our email addresses, and you can reach out to all of us at townboard@mynewcastle.org. You know, we're happy to assist in any way that we can, even if it's just asking us questions and asking us to, you know, push for clarification on things. You know, as we mentioned, we're all on a lot of Zoom calls right now, so we can try to get answers to some of these things. So I thank everybody for being a part of this, and you know, I'm looking forward to all working together. I think it's important to all of us that we work together and support one another to make it through this difficult time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thank you so
Bye,
much.
everyone.
Bye.